Welcome to Paint a Beautiful Picture. This is episode 114, and today's discussion is about nurturing purposefulness. I'm going to ask you the challenge question of the day right off because throughout this discussion, I want you considering this question. How purposeful am I? I'm really going to acknowledge to you because I've done a lot of counseling and I've been with a lot of people. I have lived in many, many states and quite a number of countries, and a lot of people just kind of roam through their days. Seriously, even people with a job. They show up at their work and they do whatever their boss tells them. And if their boss doesn't give them anything to do, then they're on their phone or they're on their computer. They just do not have a strong internal sense of purposefulness. And because of that, they just kind of lackadaisically float through their days. I'm guaranteeing you, tons and tons of people live like that. In fact, I think I would say the average person probably lives like that. I'm not telling you it won't work or you can't get through life. That's not my point. This is my point, however. If you are someone with a big vision or a dream, including a vision or a dream about what you want your home to be like, what you would like your children to be like as an adult, then you probably need to develop purposefulness. What I mean by that is this. You have a couple of hours and you have a few choices of what to do with it. 1, you can sit on your behind and watch an old movie on TV. 2, you can play a game on your phone. 3, you can look at YouTube and learn something new. 4, you can call a friend or a sibling or someone that's important to you that you have not seen in a long while and actually plan something, go somewhere, and purposefully do something fun or different with your time. But you got to choose whichever thing you did. A couple of those things are not purposeful at all. You're just kind of floating through. And a few of them take a little more planning and a lot more action. Those things are purposeful. In your relationship to your kids, if you are not purposefully sitting down and developing your relationship with them, if you are not actively listening to them, if you are not spending time doing meaningful things with them, if you're just running through the day from the second you get up in the morning until the second you go to bed at night, chances are really good that you are not going to have an awesome relationship with your children. And conversely, they are not going to have an awesome relationship with you. Let me tell you, I have counseled so many young people who have said to me, I wish I knew my dad better. I wish I knew my mom better. And I'll ask them, and why do you think you don't? I would say about 98% of the time, they are perceptive enough to know, as teenagers, well, my mom and dad just don't have time for me. Us having a good relationship just really isn't a priority for them. The teenagers are already well aware of this. They already know this. You're not pulling anything over on them, okay? That's why I say to you over and over again, as a mom, as a dad, if you're so self-preoccupied, and that means you're doing everything you want to do, and you're saying everything you are thinking, you're involved in every activity that matters to you, with little regard to the time and energy and effort that you're putting into your relationship with your child. By the time they're 13 or 14, they already know the real deal, that you're not that interested in having a relationship with them, and they are not a priority in your life. So when they become a 14 or 15-year-old rebellious teenager who has no time for you and no use for what you have to say, and they're going to run with their friends, pretty much you don't have anything to complain about if you set that up. If you've ever heard the Cat Stevens song, Cats in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon, Little Boy Blue and the Man in the Moon, when you coming home, Dad? I don't know when, but we'll get together then, son. Yeah, we'll get together then. That song tells the tale to the hilt, because in the last verse, the dad's calling the son. The dad's begging the son to spend time with him, and the son is like, well, I don't know when, Dad, but we'll get together then. Yeah, we'll get together then. Be careful what you're doing in being unconcerned with your child's life or uninvolved with their thoughts and their ideas when they're young, because it will reap consequences for you in your relationship with them when they are a teenager or an adult. You need to really start to develop purposefulness in yourself, in the manner in which you spend time and develop your relationship with your child. And then you need to nurture purposefulness in your child. Actually, I think a lot of parents are succeeding in this, but not in the ways they mean. So they're taking their kid to horseback riding lessons, and they're taking their kids to gymnastics, and they're taking them to soccer, and they're taking them to baseball, and they're taking them to this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And the kid decides that the place where he needs to be purposeful is in his activities, not in his character development, not in his relational development, in his activities. Some parents really develop or nurture a lot of purposefulness in their children in regard to school. You need to get straight A's. You're a smart kid. You better get good grades. You need to be taking all the AP classes you can have. And they do develop purposefulness in their child, but it's all academic. It's all in their mind, not with their spirit. And sometimes to the demise, or at least certainly the lack of health of their body. Many parents will develop purposefulness, but it'll be out of balance. It'll be based on the parent's own goals or objectives. You need to have conversations with your young person, even when they're 3, 4, 5, 6. Find out what's important to them. Maybe you're dragging them to football and soccer and basketball and baseball, and they hate sports. I've seen it happen more than one time. In fact, I had an 11-year-old kid who was so furious with his mom and dad because they never listened to him, and all he ever wanted to be was an artist. And incidentally, the kid was intentionally and intensely creative, constantly drawing all over everything, and he was a beautiful artist too. And yet they're always dragging him to all these sports things. They didn't pay attention at all to who the kid was, and it really infuriated him. And truthfully, I can't blame him for that. So they were trying to push what they wanted him to do, and they were doing it really purposefully, with absolutely no regard whatsoever to what mattered to him. So when you want to nurture purposefulness in your young person, your child, you have to actually pay attention to what matters to them. Most people aren't going to direct a lot of time and energy and effort toward what they hate or despise. So this is kind of pitiful that you're trying to vicariously live through your kid or force your value system, and I mean by that, valuing sports or valuing physical activity or valuing academics or valuing busyness over the child's values. I don't mean values like morality and telling the truth and being a person of character. Don't misunderstand me here. But cramming your values down your kid's throat when it is not something that is very important to her or to him is pretty foolish, and over time will even possibly develop animosity. So you want to develop purposefulness in your child by saying, your life purpose is, again, I'm going to tell it to you my viewpoint, your life purpose is to be the best you that you could possibly be, because you are the only one there will ever be. God created you uniquely. You're an absolutely amazing, one-of-a-kind human being, and God has plans for you. And so you need to pursue becoming the best you that you could ever be. My kids have heard this message their entire lives, and I can honestly say that my sons are still developing the gifts and are very excited about unearthing new treasures in themselves, even as middle-aged adults. I think that's awesome. And you need to send your children on that same adventure, discovering who they are, discovering their gifts and talents, and purposefully pursuing them. When I was 18 years old, I received a full nursing scholarship to Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. I turned it down cold. I said I would never be a nurse, not in a million years. You couldn't pay me enough money. I was absolutely disinterested in it. That scholarship was a waste of time. And it was true. Couldn't hardly stand the blood, didn't want to deal with sick, hurt people. I was not even joking around. When I was 27 years old, after having had two children with certain levels of complications and a third that died, I was ready to go to nursing school. The only thing I was interested in was taking care of pregnant women and babies. That was it. I had to go through all the rest of nursing school to get my goal, which was to take care of women and little babies. And you know what? 12 years later, at 30 years old, well, 30 and a half, I graduated from nursing school. And I've often said the joke was on me. But it was a matter of learning and developing and growing. So in that 12-year time period, I did. I got to the place where I was ready to be a nurse, and I was a very good nurse. That's great information for you as a parent, because you know what? There might have been something you couldn't even stand when you were 12 or 14 or 16. And now as a 35-year-old, you love it. You're extremely interested in it. That is not that unusual, just so you know. You keep your child looking at themselves and being interested in who they are as a unique individual. And self-discovery is a great thing. And saying, oh, I'm really interested in this. Even if all that means is they look on YouTube or they're looking on various sites on the web to find out more about the things they're interested in. And then they find out the parts that are yucky. So I'll give you for an example. I had a really sweet young girl that I knew, and she wanted to work at SeaWorld. She wanted to help train dolphins and maybe orcas. Then she found out she had to get a psychology degree. She thought she was going to need to get an oceanography degree, and that she was interested in. She wasn't remotely interested in psychology. And so she gave up her dream of training dolphins or training orcas because she did not want a psychology degree at all. And what she did get was she got a degree in mammalian research. I know that sounds really funny, but since dolphins and orcas are mammals, as are whales, she got a degree in mammalian research, which she loved, and she now works at an aquarium. In terms of both the environment, physically and emotionally, for captive mammals, as well as their interaction with each other. So she did have a couple psychological classes during that time when she did mammalian research, but I'm just letting you know that sometimes they need to look at things or examine things more closely and find out that what they thought they were going to do because of their interest isn't it, and they're going to do something different, which is what happened to her. In purposefully developing skills, you have to teach your child a level of perseverance. You're not going to just sit down and suddenly become amazing at anything. Almost everything is going to take a certain amount of practice, a certain level of devotion and commitment, and you want your child to purposefully develop those skills. So you can't give up after one or two tries. You want to be a great piano player, and you can already tell that that's in them, but it's not going to happen after one or two lessons. So when it gets hard, they've got to continue to persevere. It's also equally true in a number of other skills. Usually you're never going to be a great ball player on your first time out on the field. You are usually not going to be a great musician the first time you are in front of an instrument or you sing in front of an audience. You are not going to be a great nurse or a great doctor just because you sit down with someone who is sick or you play with your doll and bandage them up. There is a lot that's going to be involved, and you have to develop and nurture that purposefulness in your child. All right, I'm sure there's a lot more about this that we're going to need to talk about in the future. I would invite your questions and your comments. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and I would love to hear from you at paintabeautifulpicture.com, which is our website, or you may send me any kind of an email that you would like with questions or comments or even criticisms. I invite you to develop and nurture purposefulness in your own life and in the life of your children. Thank you so much for being with me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker. all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.